Hey, this is Sammy Fadil, founder of Taubyte. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to create a URL shortener within roughly an hour on Taubyte. Will look like this. This is what I actually built. It's hosted on Spore.2, and you can shorten any URL you wish there. So this is a quick example, and once you click on it, it will open the website for you. Okay, let's go to the Taubyte web console and create a project there. So we'll call it all right, it's gonna be a public project. So we're gonna leave this as is and go ahead and create a project. So first we're gonna set up the structure of the project, all the resources that we think we need, and then we'll go ahead and do the coding part and test everything after that. Okay, so this is the Taubyte web console. Obviously, you can do the same using the Taubyte CLI, and you can also do like all the configuration, just edit in YAML files as well. The source of truth is your Git repo. Creating this project, I actually have two new Git repos that were created for me, and they hold both the config and the inline code that I'm gonna create here. Let's go ahead and do some good structuring for our project by creating two applications. One would be backend and the other one would be frontend. Also go ahead and look at the domain or domains here and create a domain, since this is a web project. It will need a domain, so we're going to just generate one. You can also use your own domain. Steps are detailed in documentation, and this is what I did for Spore.2. It's pretty simple, but we'll keep it for the video just to keep it simple and quick. Okay, heading back to applications, going to go to our front end and create a front end. So we'll call it Shortner tutorial dashboard, and then we're gonna link it to the generated domain, put it under /d. So basically when you do /d, you get to the dashboard. If you don't do anything, we're expected to redirect whatever needs make short kind of word you passed in to the real URL. You can choose from any here or just create an empty website, but I'm gonna go for view. View is pretty powerful and pretty simple as well. All right, so that's done for front end. Now we have a website and it's empty for now, right? So it just has like a view template. We'll get back to this after we build our backend. All right, so let me go back to applications and go to the backend application. Now I'm gonna create two functions. All right, so one of them is shorten, that will shorten the URL. So here's gonna be HTTP. There are more choices, but for this, since this is a web app, we're gonna do HTTP and build a REST API here. Okay, so the method is going to be a post, and then I'm gonna do inline code, and actually I'm gonna use Go, and we're gonna select a quick template here. We have other languages. As of this video, we also have assembly script, but Go is my preferred language, so I'm gonna go with that. And we have the most complete implementation as of this video as well. So gonna just copy here, shorten and shorten, gonna make it empty here. And for the entry point here, it has also to be the name of the function, right? So this is the shorten function. We export it as shorten. This is just something that TinyGo requires, so it knows how to export the function. Okay, that's done. We're gonna hit OK. Oh, the domain. Gonna use the generated domain and hit OK. Okay, that's our shorten. We're gonna just copy it and do redirect. Redirect is going to go on slash. Actually, we need to fix shorten. I didn't do it the right way there. And then going to modify the name of the function, and also in the entry point fix that as well. Okay, so for shorten, I'm gonna like edit it quickly. I can fix it here, but it's also easy to fix it from the YAML, so that's also a good option. So we can get rid of the description since that one was not correct. And then for the path, it's gonna be shorten. So we're gonna replace ping here by shorten and validate. What else do we need? So to store the relation between the short URL and the real URL, we need a database. So gonna head to databases and create a distributed key value database. I'm gonna call it URLs. And then the match would be URLs. The reason we have that is you can create multiple instances of a database. It could be very useful in the case of a chat. It could be very useful in edge computing as well. So that's the reason why we have this feature. So I'm gonna keep between 2 and 5 replicas. And Pat just put slash in here, and then I'm gonna give it a size or a maximum size of 1 gig. And I'm gonna save this. Okay, cool. So we created all the resources we need. Database, functions on the backend, and front end we created a website. And don't forget about the generated domain that we have. Right. So let's go ahead and save this generated domain somewhere. So it's ready to go because we'll need it. And then we're going to push our changes. So everything that we did so far is happening on a virtual file system on the web app, which is, the console.taubyte.com. Once you push your code to GitHub, things are going to happen. Protocols that implement CI/CD will pick up this config and consume it and push it to the network. So again, so you can see here we have like a backend, a front end, we have a domain, and this looks okay. The front end, we said that we had a website, and this looks okay. It's on /t, all good. On the back end, we had 2 functions, right? And we have redirect, looks good. Shorten looks good as well. And we also created a database, and it's right here, and it looks good too. All right, gonna hit next. On the code side, we have 2 empty functions that we created, and that's it. So gonna hit next and put a commit message. Commit. Let's go to project details, locate your code repo here, click on it, then go ahead on code and copy. All right, go to your terminal and then git clone and clone your repo. So that's cd into it and then open code. Okay, once you have code open, you're gonna see that we have our 2 functions in here and VS Code. If you haven't installed the Go extension, go ahead and install it beforehand. If you do, you're good to go. Again, I notice some reds here and VS Code complaining about code. So what we're gonna do is put this to the side. Then we have our terminal here. So I'm gonna do go mod init and give it a name. It doesn't have to be anything special. And go mod tidy. We'll grab the Taubyte SDK and we'll fix the issues that we had here. So a good way to kind of like handle those two files is to add them to a git ignore. We don't really need them in this case, so okay. Cool. Let's start by implementing shorten. Okay, so shorten is a post function. It's a post on shorten, and it's expected to return the shorten URL, right? So this is what we're gonna do. Let's start by defining the body, because we're gonna get some data through the body, and this is going to be encoded in JSON. So I'm expecting a base URL, because I mean, if we do it that way, it makes it easier to extend this URL shortener to multiple domains. It's also an easy way a very simple way to validate where it's coming from. I'm gonna say that base URL is base underscore URL. I don't really like to use camel case in JSON, so I'm gonna go this route. And then we're expected to return a response. I'm gonna make it return the URL, obviously. Just the short code that was generated, just short. And then whether the URL exists or not. This will okay, cool. So that's done. We have our structs. Those structs need to be parsed using JSON. One thing to know here with TinyGo, or what we use to build WebAssembly modules, is that it doesn't support reflect fully. And the standard library that handles JSON or the JSON encoder or decoder in Go uses a lot of reflect features that TinyGo doesn't implement. So what we're gonna use instead is something called DCJSON. To do so, we're gonna just copy paste these 3 lines. The first one is gonna install EasyJSON. The second one is gonna install the EasyJSON command, and the last one is going to run the command to generate the marshalling and marshalling methods for those two structs. Gonna save. Now we're gonna go back to our terminal and I want to go generate dot. This will install EasyJSON, run it, and that will generate a file. Shorten EasyJSON here that you can see. This file is going to be generated by the CI/CD, so we don't really need to keep it around. So we're gonna say that we don't need it. Okay. Okay, so this file is not needed because our CI/CD is gonna generate it, like I said. All right, let's start implementing. So Taubyte function can have multiple types of events. The event that we're looking at right now is an HTTP event, so let's grab that. The event is not HTTP, we're gonna get an error. So if the error is different than nil, gonna return 1, which will signal an error to the node executing your code. Okay, once we have that, we want to grab the body, which is a reader or an IO reader, right? So if I do var IO reader equal hbody, it's gonna go smoothly, okay, because it is an IO reader. What I do actually is say body data equal IO read all, and then read the body. Okay, this is gonna return an error, so I'm gonna handle that, and we need to create the variable too, and obviously handle the error. So for now, I'm just gonna do very simple error handling. Later on, we can improve that. And then we need to create a body structure or an instance of body, and marshal the bytes into it. Let's say body dot and marshal JSON, and we're gonna give it body data. Right now our body has the data. Obviously also handling errors here. Then you're gonna return -1 for now. Gonna make it better layer. Okay, so what did we have here? We had base URL and URL. Let's start with the simple one, which is base URL. So base URL is supposed to be the exact match of the domain we're having right now. So I'm gonna create a variable here for base URL. And remember earlier I said, like, let's copy the generated domain and save it somewhere. Gonna paste it here. And then when we get our request, we're gonna say, so if body dot base URL is different than our constant here, we're gonna return an error. Otherwise, we're good to go, and we should be able to shorten our URL. Okay, so how do we shorten the URL? There are many ways to do it. You can generate the random string and then see if it's in the database. If it is, you generate another one and try again. Or we can hash the URL and take a portion of it and then check if it's in the database. And then later on, a better version of that is add characters from like that slice that we took from the whole hash until we don't find something in the database. The reason we use the hash, or we're going to use hash instead of a random, is because if you do random, there is a chance of collision that is greater than using a hash, and this is why we're going to do that. So it's going to reduce the try again, but also in a distributed system, it's going to reduce the chances that there is another node out there that's trying to do something similar or came up with the same random number than us. Okay, so to do so, we're going to hash the URL, and we can actually use multi-hash for that. You can either use Go multi-hash or use Taubyte implementation in utils. This is what I'm going to use here in this example. So I'm going to hash body.url. Let's hope it's going to come up with the right one. Import. Okay, no. Yeah, let's do it manually. If we're going to do GitHub. Hash Taubyte. Hash util multi-hash. Okay, that's exactly what we're gonna use. And let's go ahead and do a Como tidy so the module is grabbed and we have completion here. Okay, so obviously we're not gonna use all of that, but let's still put this in a variable and then grab a portion of it that we'll call proposed. So proposed is gonna be URL hash and then we're gonna grab the last few characters of URL hash. We're gonna do URL hash, say -5 till the end. Okay, and that's what like we're gonna use here. So this -5 is not like very good practice, so we'll just call it minlen, and then go up here and modify it. Okay. So once we have that, we need to check in the database if it exists. And then if it exists, we're gonna return that it exists. If it doesn't exist, we're gonna add it to the database. Okay, let's first open the database. So to do so, we need to import database here. And we're gonna do db error equal database.new. And I remember we called our database URLs. The reason we do new, not open, is it's a distributed database. So if it doesn't exist, it's gonna be created. And it's a CRTT database. So if a node is not aware that other nodes created the database, it's gonna create it from scratch, but synchronize when it connects with the other nodes layer. Okay, so if that, we're gonna return 1. Okay, if now we have our database, we're gonna do get. So we're gonna get something, right? So gonna do a get on proposed, and then say gonna do. We don't really care about the value we get because all we want to verify is if it exists or not, right? And then I'm gonna do here this will false. So if error will nil, meaning that we did find something, gonna do exist equal true. Okay, so if there is an error, meaning like we didn't find it, we need to do db.put, and now we're gonna do proposed, and then body.url. Okay, and then we can have, so if there is an error here, not very unlikely, but if it does happen, we want to fail. If there is no error, it means that we added it, but exists is false still. And then here we're gonna do response. Gonna do URL equal our base URL, so HTTPS and stuff. We can build this with net URL, but I'm just gonna keep it simple here and just use this. And then we're gonna add slash cool, and then okay. One thing I forgot here, and it's pretty important, is we will need to lowercase this. The reason we want to do that is browsers sometimes lowercase the URLs. So like though the server could be case sensitive, the browser is not. So we want to just make sure everything is lowercase. Okay, so our URL is this, and then exists is basically exists, and then short is basically proposed. Then we're gonna do Marshall JSON. Okay, so this is going to return a response, which is this structure converted into JSON. Okay, returns an error too, and we're gonna handle the error quickly here. A dirty way. Can make it better later. And then I'm gonna do h.write response. That's it. You can also say send a code, but it's not really necessary. Gonna return code 200, but it's not really necessary. Okay, so I think here we have our shortened URL all ready to go. Let's go to redirect and implement that. Okay, what does redirect require? So it is a get. It is a get on slash, and it's expecting s equals something, right? Our short here. So we need to grab that, look into the database, and then grab the URL and redirect to it if we have that in the database. Okay, so let's start with the same thing that we did earlier. Convert the event into HTTP. And then gonna grab the query, right? And query is here, and do get, and then we're looking for s. Right now we're gonna say like, okay, short, call this. Okay, so if we have an error, meaning that short does not exist, we're gonna return 1. If not, we have a short and we need to look in the database. So we're gonna do db error equal database dot new, and then our database is URLs. You can also make this a constant or variable. And if we have an error with opening the database, I'm gonna just return 1 for now. If we don't have any error, let's just make sure we close the database. And that's probably something that might have forgotten here. Let's see. Yep. All right, let's close the database here too. Okay, so if you're not familiar that much with Go, defer db.close means that when the function is done, when you do a return, execute this function. Okay, and then we're gonna see if we can find our URL in the database. Okay, so if we have an error, means that we didn't find it, just gonna return it. If we did find it, gonna do h.redirect, and then gonna ask for the URL, converting it to string, and then we'll say, okay, it's a temporary redirect. And that's it. That's our redirect. So our backend here is 100% implemented. All we need to do is push the code. Okay, so once the code is pushed, we can head to Web Console and we can see that the code is being built. Okay, back to Web Console. If you go to build, you can see here that, let's go ahead and refresh. There is a job for code that's open. So we'll leave this build. We're gonna go ahead and get Postman ready to go so we can test our requests. Okay, I have Postman here open. You can use any other tool that you're familiar with. I'm using here Postman because I think most developers are used to it. So just gonna go ahead and use this. So gonna do HTTPS, the generated domain that was generated for us. And now we're gonna do a post on shorten. So the post is going to have some data in the body, and it's gonna be JSON. We're gonna have base URL, going to be the domain that we had, and then we're gonna have URL, which let's say it's just https taubyte.com. Okay, so we have post on the domain /shorten we're sending this JSON, and we should get back a response with a shortened URL. Okay, there we go. So we can see here that that's the URL that was generated, and this is the short of the URL. Okay, now how about we go ahead and copy this and test it in the browser, which should redirect us to taubyte.com. All right, now here in the browser, gonna just paste it here, or just paste the URL actually, and hit enter. Okay, it looks like we have an issue in our config. Okay, let's go back to console and debug that. Okay, gonna go back to application, backend, and let's check our redirect function. So it's on slash, oh, we left it at post. So let's fix it to get and hit here, enter, and then push the config. Okay, we're gonna say fixed method for redirect to get. Gonna hit finish. If we go back to build here, you'll see that we're building config. Generally, builds for config are pretty quick, so shouldn't take long. And then we're gonna just grab our URL again that we generated and paste it here. And boom, redirection to Taubyte. Okay, so far we implemented the backend. Now we need to implement the front end. To do so, we're gonna go to application, front end, then go to our website here and click on this little icon. So this will open it on GitHub, which will give us the opportunity to copy the SSH URI so we can clone it. Git clone and put our URI here. So gonna cd into it. Now we're gonna open VS Code. Okay, when VS Code is open, we can look into the website here. So this is a very simple Vue.js template. So we can do a yarn -i to install all the dependencies here quickly. Meanwhile, it's installing. Let me walk you through the CI/CD part. So in a Taubyte folder, we have config YAML that defines how it's being built. So it's going to use an image, and this is a node image, and it's gonna follow a workflow. So here we only have one step, which is build, and it's gonna recognize that this is linked to build sh because it's in the same folder. It's gonna run those commands, generate the website in this, and then move it to out where the website builder is gonna pack it into a zip and deploy it to the network, and then stash it or pin it if you wish. Okay, so I think we have everything installed. We're gonna do yarn serve. So this will open this, give us like a little web server for this. Meanwhile, it's getting this done. Gonna go to the source and modify it a little bit so it fits our needs. Okay, now we have this little Vue app. Let's head to app.vue and modify it slightly so it fits our needs. You can make it look better like after it's all working on your side. So let's modify the message here. So we're gonna say welcome to our URL Shortner. And if you look in component here, hello world is pretty big, and we don't need any of this. We're only gonna keep the message. And in here, we can obviously create the component, but because when I just keep it simple, just gonna add inputs here. Gonna add an input, and we're gonna link it to URL. So this input is going to be basically the URL that we're gonna type. And then we're gonna have like a submit button. And when clicked, gonna do shorten. And finally, we're gonna have the shortened URL. And it's gonna be pointing to the URL itself. So I just call it SURL. Okay, that looks pretty good. Gonna create all the data that we defined here. If you're not used to Vue, you can do the same on React or anything else, or actually just watch a quick intro to Vue. Vue.js is pretty simple and easy to learn. So, okay, so we have URL, which by default is undefined. Let's put it to empty. And then we have SURL, which also let's put it to empty by default. Okay, that sounds good. Let's just add our API URL. Just grab it from Postman, and that's our API URL. Okay, now we need to implement the method that's gonna actually make it happen. So we called it here shorten. So we're gonna just call it here. We're gonna make it an async because we're going to use Axios in an async mode. It makes the code looks way cleaner. So okay, so the response, we're gonna await. Okay, obviously I need to import Axios. And we'll need to install Axios in a little bit too. So okay, so we're gonna do a post, and it's gonna be API plus shorten, and we're gonna send some data in here, right? So we have base URL, which is going to be this guy here, and then we're gonna send URL. Sorry about that. Then we're gonna send URL, which is URL. Actually, this .url. And also here is this .api. Alright, that sounds good. So this will get us the request, and then the short URL, so this .surl is equal to the response dot data dot URL. Okay, so I think that's it. We implemented this method. We're gonna save, and then we're going. Oh, let's delete this. It's not needed. Okay, so yarn serve is on 8080, so we go there, and we got our URL shortener. So let's try it out. HTTPS Taubyte.com, and then hit submit, and nothing happens. Probably have some errors. Let's open the developer tool. We have some errors in here. Says post not a function. Yep. Sorry about that. Let's go back to the code. Okay, so Taubyte.com and hit submit, and boom, we have a shortened version of the URL that when you click, it's gonna take you to Taubyte.com. Cool, awesome. You've built the URL shortener. What's left now is to push the code and have it published online. The next thing that we need to do is to make this public. So if you publish it like this, it's not gonna work because remember we're hosting the dashboard or this website under /d. So we need to tell Vue.js that that's what needs to happen. Okay, so the easy way to do it is just to add the following lines of code. Okay, so we're gonna say public path if environment variable node env is production, it's gonna be /d. Okay, so I'm gonna save this and then push the code to GitHub. Okay, pushing to GitHub is gonna generate a job that you can see popping up right here. So we're building the website. It's gonna take a few seconds here to get built. When it's done, we can just go to the website and try it out. And we're gonna go to applications. Sorry about that. Applications front end website, and there is a short link here. And boom, that's our URL shortener. Yeah, let's do Taubyte, or let's shorten the URL shortener itself. Boom, and submit, and there we go. Awesome, it's all working. That's your URL shortener. You can make it look better, just like mine. A couple things to note. So if you go to config here, you're gonna notice that config was pushed and everything that we do at Taubyte is distributed and decentralized. So basically your database, all of this information is held in a distributed registry. Every resource has a CID that identify it in a unique way on the network. And then your functions, in addition to their CID for the function itself that doesn't change, has an asset ID that's linked to the WebAssembly file that represent that function. And same thing for your front end. If you go to the website here, you can see that my website has also an asset CID that represent the zip file containing the website itself. All those assets can be downloaded if you just copy them and paste them in here. You can download the asset itself. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you learned a lot, and hopefully it will give you enough knowledge to start building amazing things on our sandbox or any Taubyte based cloud out there.